What if I told you that your mind could become 200% sharper? Not with modern hacks, not with dopamine detoxes, but through the forbidden wisdom of a man who mastered the art of power 500 years ago. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, a man so controversial that his very name became a synonym for manipulation. But what if we've been wrong about him all along? What if behind the mask of the ruthless strategist hides the blueprint for a sharper, faster, more adaptable mind? The kind of mind that sees patterns others miss and wins battles before they even begin. Before you judge him, listen carefully. Machiavelli wasn't born powerful. He lived in chaos, a time of betrayal, wars and political blood games in Renaissance Italy. He served in the government of Florence, advised princes, and saw how power worked from the inside. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, he was accused of conspiracy, tortured, and exiled. But instead of collapsing, he retreated into isolation, and there he began to write the book that would shake the world, The Prince. It wasn't a manual for tyrants. It was a study of human behavior, of strategy, of survival. It was Machiavelli's way of saying, the world will devour the naive, learn how it works, or be consumed by it. So why should you watch this video until the end? Because this isn't about history. It's about mental evolution. Machiavelli's lessons can rewire how you think, plan, and act. They teach you how to see through people's words, how to anticipate moves before they happen, and how to stay calm in chaos while everyone else is losing their minds. These are not tricks for manipulation. They are tools for awareness, for clarity, for mental strength. In a world where attention is currency, emotion is weapon, and perception is everything, Machiavelli's wisdom can turn your ordinary thinking into a strategic mind. A mind that sees 3 steps ahead while others are still reacting. Here's something most people don't know. Machiavelli's genius wasn't just political, it was psychological. He understood the hidden motivations that drive people. He studied how fear and desire shape decisions. Long before psychology existed as a science, Machiavelli was mapping the human mind like a battlefield. He believed that real intelligence comes not from knowledge, but from perspective, from the ability to see what others ignore. And that is the secret to sharpening your mind. When he wrote The Prince, he wasn't writing for kings. He was writing for thinkers, for those who wanted to see the truth without illusions. He wrote that fortune favors those who act, those who prepare when others pray. He observed that power belongs not to the strong, but to the strategic. And he revealed something profound. To master life, you must first master perception, how you see, how you think, how you respond. That is where your power begins. In this video, we'll uncover how Machiavelli's hidden teachings can double your mental sharpness. You'll learn how to control your emotions under pressure, how to anticipate outcomes like a chess player, how to stay adaptable when the world changes overnight, and how to build a mindset so disciplined that chaos becomes your advantage. You'll see why Machiavelli's name terrified rulers but inspired thinkers, from Napoleon to modern CEOs, and how his timeless principles can still shape the way you move through life today. If you've ever felt that your potential is dulled by overthinking, distraction, or fear, this video will give you the mental weapons to break through. Watch carefully, because each lesson will connect like a chain. One insight leading to the next, sharpening your vision, and revealing how the world really works beneath the surface. By the end, you'll understand why Machiavelli believed that power isn't given, it's built inside the mind. Welcome to Psych Algorithm. Subscribe now, and let's begin sharpening your mind, the Machiavellian way. Before we talk about the tricks, tactics, and strategies that made Machiavelli's name echo through history, we have to start where it all truly begins, inside the mind. Because for Machiavelli, power was never just about armies, wealth, or authority. It was about control, not over others, but over yourself. He believed that every act of strength, every move of influence, starts long before it happens in the world. It starts in thought. The sharper your mind, the more precise your power. Machiavelli saw that most people live reactively. They wait for things to happen, then scramble to respond. But the powerful, he noticed, are different. They live mentally 2 or 3 steps ahead. They think before they act, and they act with intention. Their power doesn't come from luck or position. It comes from their ability to anticipate. In his eyes, the battlefield of life is not conquered by force, but by foresight. When Machiavelli wrote about rulers and statesmen, he wasn't glorifying brutality. He was revealing a hidden law, that intellect rules muscle, and vision controls chaos. A clever strategist can defeat a stronger opponent if he sees the next move first. This wasn't just political advice, it was psychological truth. The person who sees further wins more often. In every field, business, relationships, leadership, even personal growth. He believed the mind must be trained like a soldier. It must learn to read patterns, to notice what others miss, to stay calm while others panic. For Machiavelli, mental discipline was the purest form of power. Anyone can act out of emotion, anger, fear, pride, but few can pause, observe, and respond with calculation. That pause, that breath before reaction, is where true strength lives. Machiavelli admired those who could detach from their emotions, not because they were cold, but because they were free. Emotion, he thought, is a chain that binds the untrained mind. It's people predictable, and predictability is weakness. The powerful are those who see emotion as information, not instruction. They use it, but they don't obey it. He once compared fortune, the unpredictable force of life, to a river that floods without warning. You can't control the storm, but you can build walls before it comes. The mind, in his view, that wall. When it's fortified with preparation and foresight, chaos cannot drown it. That's why thinking ahead, planning for every outcome, and expecting betrayal or failure was not cynicism for him. It was wisdom. Machiavelli's heroes weren't the strongest or the most ruthless. They were the ones who could stay steady when everything around them was collapsing. He saw power, not as domination, but as awareness. The ability to read a situation before anyone else understands what's happening. A powerful mind doesn't wait for clarity, it creates it. So, when Machiavelli says power begins in the mind, he isn't speaking metaphorically. He's revealing a fact of human nature. The world bends to those who can think deeper, plan further, and see patterns invisible to others. For him, the throne doesn't belong to the loudest, but to the one who thinks in silence and strikes with precision when the time is right. Machiavelli once wrote that men are so simple, and so much creatures of circumstance, that the deceiver will always find someone to deceive. But what he really meant wasn't just about manipulation. It was about observation. Before you learn to influence anyone, you must first learn to see them. And here lies his first great mental weapon. Never believe only what people say. Words are camouflage. People reveal themselves not through what they declare, but through what they do when they think no one is watching. Machiavelli understood that human beings are masters of pretending. They say what sounds noble, what wins approval, what keeps them safe. But beneath every phrase hides a motive: fear, greed, pride, or desire. The sharper mind listens beyond the words. It studies tone, hesitation, choice of timing. It notices when someone's eyes shift at the wrong moment, or when enthusiasm suddenly feels forced. He believed a good observer can learn more from silence than from a speech. The difference between the powerful and the powerless, he said, is the ability to read the room before anyone speaks. In today's world, that lesson is more vital than ever. Everyone performs in workplaces, online, even in relationships. But if you train your perception, you begin to see the cracks in the mask. You notice when a compliment hides envy, when agreement hides resistance, or when confidence hides fear. That's how you gain the upper hand, not through confrontation, but through awareness. Because when you see people clearly, you can act strategically instead of emotionally. You stop reacting to what they say and start responding to what they mean. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone supports your idea too eagerly. Most would take it as approval, but a Machiavellian mind would pause. Ask why the support came so fast, whether there's another agenda at play. That's the difference between being liked and being effective. A sharp mind doesn't rush to believe. It watches, listens, calculates. Every action becomes data, every gesture a clue. Over time, you start predicting behavior, not guessing, but reading the pattern hidden in the person. From this ability flows the next lesson. Always think multiple moves ahead. Machiavelli viewed life like a chessboard. Every move you make sets off a chain reaction of consequences, both visible and invisible. He saw that people who think only of the present are slaves to it. The wise think in layers, now, next, and after. Before they speak, they ask, what will this cause? What will others think? How will they respond? That is how strategy is born, not in impulsive decisions, but in the ability to foresee. In politics, Machiavelli studied rulers who fell not because they lacked power, but because they couldn't anticipate betrayal. They acted boldly but blindly. The successful ones, he wrote, were those who played the long game, who thought of not only their actions, but their opponents' reactions, and the reactions to those reactions. The same rule applies in daily life. When you're negotiating, don't focus only on your word. Picture what the other person will feel, what they might do next. When you plan a project, don't assume everything will go right. Ask what could go wrong, and what you'll do when it does. This kind of thinking doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you prepared. Most people operate with one plan. The Machiavellian mind operates with several. One visible, one hidden, one waiting in reserve. That's why it seems sharper, faster, more intelligent. It's not speed that makes it powerful. It's foresight. The ability to live one or two mental moves ahead creates calm in uncertainty. You stop being surprised because you already expected the twist. And yet, Machiavelli knew that even the best plans collapse. Fortune, he wrote, is a woman, wild, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel, which brings us to his third lesson. Embrace flexibility, not rigidity. A rigid mind is like glass, clear, but fragile. It breaks under pressure. A flexible mind bends, adapts, and survives. Machiavelli admired leaders who could shift course when the world changed, who could abandon pride for practicality. He said that those who cannot change their nature when times change will always fall. In his eyes, adaptability wasn't weakness. It was intelligence in motion. The world rewards those who adjust faster than others. The sharper mind doesn't cling to being right. It focuses on being effective. When one door closes, it doesn't mourn. It looks for a window. When plan A fails, it doesn't freeze. It already has plan B and C waiting quietly. That's how Machiavellian thinkers survive storms that destroy others. They don't resist change. They ride it. This mental flexibility is not about constant shifting. It's about calculated movement. The trick is to never let your ego anchor you. The moment you say this is the only way, you've already begun to lose. The environment changes. People evolve. Fortunes flip. Adaptation is not betrayal of principles. It's loyalty to success. For Machiavelli, the strongest mind was the one that flowed like water, soft when needed, but capable of cutting through stone. But even adaptability needs discipline, which is why his fourth lesson may be the hardest. Detach emotion from decisions. Machiavelli never said to be heartless, but he warned that emotion clouds reason. When you act in anger, when fear dictates your choices, you hand over your power. the wise ruler. He wrote, "Must learn when to feel deeply and when to act coldly. Compassion and logic can coexist. But in moments of judgment, logic must lead." Imagine you're betrayed by a friend or colleague. The emotional mind wants revenge. The strategic mind pauses. It studies the situation, calculates the outcome, and decides whether acting on emotion serves or destroys the greater plan. That pause is everything. Machiavelli called it prudence, the ability to see reality without distortion. He believed emotions are natural but must be governed. Power requires composure, and composure is born from distance. A useful habit he would approve of is the mental pause. When provoked, when excited, when tempted to speak too soon, stop, breathe, ask, what do I gain by acting now? What do I lose by waiting? That short delay separates the impulsive from the strategic. It's in that stillness that clarity emerges. Because while others are consumed by reaction, your mind remains your own. And finally, the most misunderstood lesson of all, the end justifies the means. For centuries, this phrase has been twisted into something sinister, as if Machiavelli preached cruelty. But in it, he meant something more precise. In the brutal politics of Renaissance Italy, leaders often faced impossible choices: save the state through harsh action, or lose it through weakness. His message was that sometimes difficult means are necessary for survival, but he never said that any means were acceptable. His wisdom was contextual, not corrupt. To sharpen your mind, this idea becomes a tool of reflection. When you make decisions, don't think in absolutes. Think in proportions. Ask, is the action I'm taking justified by its outcome? Is the cost equal to the reward? If not, the decision is flawed. This transforms the phrase from a license to harm into a filter for wisdom. It forces you to weigh every choice with both heart and intellect. The end justifies the means only when both align with principle and purpose. This also reveals Machiavelli's true depth. He wasn't glorifying ruthlessness, but urging realism. He knew that moral purity without strategy is helpless, just as strategy without morality is hollow. The thighs is to walk the razor's edge between them, using intelligence as balance. Power without control is destruction. Power with insight is mastery. So, as these lessons unfold, observing people beyond their words, thinking multiple moves ahead, staying flexible, controlling emotion, and testing every action by its purpose, you begin to see what Machiavelli truly taught. His wisdom wasn't meant to turn people into manipulators. It was meant to awaken their perception, to sharpen the mind until it can cut through illusion and see truth for what it is. In that clarity lies not just survival, but the foundation of real power. Machiavelli believed that true power never announces itself. It moves quietly, without noise, without explanation. The strongest players, he observed, were often the most silent. They revealed their plans only when the results were already visible, and by then, it was too late for anyone to stop them. This formed one of his most essential rules of intelligence. Guard your inner self. The more others know your intentions, the easier it becomes for them to control or undermine you. Secrecy is not paranoia, it is protection. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler should never reveal his full mind to anyone, because people interpret what they know through their own interests. If they can predict you, they can use you. But if they cannot read you, they must respect you, or at least fear misjudging you. In modern life, this principle still holds true. When you share every thought, every plan, every insecurity, you hand others the blueprint to your mind. And once they have that, they can build or break you at will. Sharpening your mind means learning to be selective. Not everyone deserves to know your direction. Some people will use it to compete, others to copy. Even good intentions can twist the meaning of your words. Machiavelli's wisdom lies in the art controlled revelation. Show just enough to influence, but never enough to be exposed. Speak less than you know, act more than you explain. Keep your motives layered, your intentions masked by calm ambiguity. People respect mystery, and they cannot attack what they do not understand. He once observed that the fox survives not because it is strong, but because it hides its tracks. Likewise, the sharp mind doesn't shout its goals. It moves in silence and lets results speak. Every plan you share publicly becomes a promise you must defend, but a plan kept private remains flexible. It can change, evolve, disappear without consequence. This is the hidden advantage of discretion. It preserves freedom. When no one knows your next step, you are unbound. You can adapt without losing credibility. You can pivot without apology. A simple rule emerges from this. Share your plans only with those who benefit when you succeed. Never confide in those who compete for the same space, even if they seem friendly. Trust is not given, it is tested. Watch how people react to your small wins. If they celebrate them genuinely, they can be trusted with greater truths. If they diminish them, stay silent. The sharp mind uses silence not as weakness, but as armor. It listens more, speaks less, and acts when the timing is invisible. Machiavelli himself lived this principle. After his political downfall, he could no longer speak freely. Every word could be turned against him. So he wrote in riddles, wrapped meaning in layers, and hid lessons inside metaphors. His survival depended on discretion, and through it, he discovered that silence can be the loudest form of power. When others rush to prove themselves, the wise observe. They wait, they act when the noise fades. That is when strategy becomes unstoppable. But life is not only about concealment. There are times when you will face limits so harsh that silence alone cannot save you. That is where Machiavelli's next lesson emerges. Turn constraints into strengths. His entire life was a study in limitation, stripped of influence, resources, and safety. He could have surrendered. Instead, he transformed his exile into mastery. In isolation, he wrote The Prince, the book that made his name, or what destroyed him politically became the very reason history remembers him. That is the essence of this lesson. The sharpest minds do not curse their obstacles. They use them. Machiavelli saw constraints, not as chains but as challenges that force creativity. When resources vanish, the mind sharpens. When allies betray, perception deepens. When life tightens, the brain adapts. He wrote that fortune tests those it intends to make strong. The weak complain, the wise strategize. To think like Machiavelli is to see every limitation as an opportunity to grow subtler, smarter, and stronger. Imagine you face scarcity of money, time, or support. Most people panic. A Machiavellian mind pauses and asks, what advantage hides here? What can I do that others won't? Maybe your lack of resources forces innovation. Maybe your loneliness builds self-reliance. Maybe your failure exposes the truth about who stands beside you. Every setback is information. Every restriction is training. This mindset transforms struggle into a forge. While others break under pressure, you become tempered by it. History repeats this lesson endlessly. Great thinkers, leaders, and creators emerge from constraint, not comfort. Machiavelli understood that abundance softens, limitation sharpens. In scarcity, you learn to prioritize. In adversity, you learn resilience. A sharp mind doesn't ask for an easier path. It asks for the strength to navigate a hard one. That's the difference between the ordinary and the exceptional. And here's something fascinating. Modern science actually supports Machiavelli's intuition. There's a theory called the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis, suggesting that human intelligence itself evolved through social competition and survival strategy. Our ancestors didn't just get smarter to hunt or build. They got smarter to outthink, outmaneuver, and outsurvive one another. The brain's complexity is in part a response to social challenge. We are wired for subtlety, strategy, and deception detection. In a way, our species was built for the kind of thinking Machiavelli described centuries ago. That means his lessons don't go against nature. They activate it. When you learn to observe people, anticipate reactions, and adapt to changing environments, you're training the very instincts that made humans dominant. Machiavellian intelligence isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. It's about seeing the invisible threads that connect behavior, emotion, and consequence, and using that vision to move wisely through life. To put this ancient wisdom into practice, start small. The first exercise, before speaking, predict someone's reaction. Not as a guess, but as a test of your observation. Notice how tone, timing, context change the outcome. This sharpens your anticipation, your social radar. The second exercise. In disagreements, pause before replying. Think 2 steps ahead. Not just about winning the argument, but about the ripple effect of your words. What will this do tomorrow? What will it cost or gain you later? That pause transforms conflict into strategy. The third exercise is the cornerstone of Machiavellian thinking. Always keep a hidden plan. Never build your life on a single path. Have a backup, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The world is unpredictable, and control belongs to those who prepare quietly. A visible plan gives others power over you. A hidden one keeps you free. This is how you maintain stability in chaos. You are never truly trapped when your mind carries more than one map. Yet, Machiavelli also warned that this kind of intelligence is dangerous if used without ethics. He saw how knowledge of human nature could be twisted into cruelty. That's why it's crucial to remember, attending your mind is about clarity, not corruption. Strategy without morality becomes manipulation. The goal isn't to exploit others, but to understand them, to see truth where emotion blinds most people. The dark side of Machiavellianism is real. Those who abuse it lose themselves. They trade respect for fear, influence for suspicion. Machiavelli's true mastery wasn't in deception. It was in awareness. He wanted minds that could see the world without illusions, not hearts empty of conscience. Use his lessons as lenses, not weapons. Power built on deceit collapses when truth arrives. But power built on insight endures because it aligns with reality. So guard your mind not only from others, but from arrogance. Remember that even the sharpest blade can cut its wielder. Intelligence is a responsibility. Strategy is service. To yourself, your goals, and the world you move through. Ethics is your compass. Without it, every victory becomes poison. With it, every lesson becomes strength. When you step back and look at these ideas together, a pattern appears. The Machiavellian path isn't about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming aware. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to bend and when to stand firm, when to act from reason and when to trust intuition. It's about mastering yourself so completely that no external chaos can unbalance you. These lessons, secrecy, adaptability, foresight, discipline, awareness, are not traits of manipulation. They are marks of mastery. Each one sharpens a different edge of the mind. To observe people beyond words sharpens perception. To think multiple moves ahead sharpens foresight. To stay flexible sharpens adaptability. To detach emotion sharpens control. To question your means sharpens judgment. To guard your inner self sharpens focus. To turn constraints into strength sharpens resilience. Together they forge what Machiavelli valued most. A mind that cannot be deceived, dominated, or destroyed. A mind that moves like a shadow, silent, precise, unshakable. A mind that understands that power does not begin outside, but within. And once that power awakens, it doesn't shout, it watches, it waits. And when it acts, the world never sees it coming. So here's the real challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to test just one of these lessons in your own life. Maybe it's observing people beyond their words, or keeping one plan to yourself, instead of telling everyone. Maybe it's staying calm in a heated moment, or thinking 2 steps ahead before you react. Try it. Watch what changes. You'll start to notice that people reveal themselves more easily. Situations that once felt confusing suddenly make sense. And you'll realize that sharpness isn't about being faster, it's about seeing deeper. Machiavelli believed that power, strategy, and influence all begin in one place, the mind. And once your thinking sharpens, everything else follows. You make fewer emotional mistakes. You stop being predictable. You stop being controlled by circumstance, and start shaping it. So if this video made you think differently, if it challenged you or opened your eyes, that's the first sign your mind is already getting sharper. Now imagine where you'll be after applying these lessons every day. Strategy isn't something you learn from a book. It's something you train your mind to live by. Power isn't out there. It begins with your thinking. If you want to keep building that mindset, like this video, subscribe to Psych Algorithm and join a community of thinkers who train their minds to see what others miss. Because here, every video isn't just information. It's evolution.